Thank you so much. Most of you know me. My name is Nayman. I'm an author of humorous science fiction. The way I see this happening is I'm going to talk for a few minutes, then I'm going to read an excerpt from my new novel, which is what we're here to celebrate. After I read, if anybody is moved to buy the novel, that's great, we can do that. And then we will have cake. Oh, and I forgot. Anybody who buys a copy of the novel will be entered into a raffle for my book that isn't coming out until next April. Okay, so just a couple of comments to start first. The first one is, as I've told most of you, I am a recovering shy person. When I started going to cons maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it was kind of a real struggle for me to actually, talk to strangers, people I didn't know. It was kind of frightening, actually, when I think back on it.
We're still judging you.
But, well, I know you are, but the thing is that in reflecting on this, and also on my third CanCon, hi, Sam, come in. I realized that, not by my watch, I realized that I've actually made a lot of friends at cons, some very good friends, and certainly have met a lot of people who are well-wishers. And I'm still a relatively shy person, but I just wanted to acknowledge the cons are actually pretty awesome. And all of you coming out tonight or today for my launch is pretty awesome too. Thank you so much for that. It means a lot to me. This is actually the 5th book in my Multiverse series, and there is a bit of melancholy to the 5th book in a series of humorous science fiction because, of course, Douglas Adams wrote 5 books in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, so I'm kind of there now. I'm kind of at the level of production, if not the level of fame. And
fortune.
And the thing is, and I've spoken to a couple of people at this con about this, when you write humorous science fiction, you have to expect you're going to be compared to Douglas Adams. He's kind of like the gold standard of the genre. And, I've had a lot of reviews, almost all positive, I'll allow, that compare me to Douglas Adams. And it's nice because, of course, I'm a fan of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as much as anybody. But I always try and point out to people that while the comparison is nice, it's a bit misleading. My sense of humor is very different, and the way I use comic devices is very different from Douglas Adams. And I'm always concerned that people are going to pick up one of my books thinking they're going to get another Hitchhikers and being disappointed when they get, me. And so far, nobody's actually said it, but maybe it's just that fans are polite. But in any case, so I wanted to make that clear for people who are not familiar with my writing. But a nice thing happened to me. So my books are published by Elsewhen Press, which is a small British speculative fiction publisher. And as we were going through the editing of the first novel, Welcome to the Multiverse, Sorry for the Inconvenience, I told the publisher, Peter Buck, my qualms about being compared to Douglas Adams. And he said, well, I actually knew Douglas Adams. In fact, I have a very good friend who worked with Douglas Adams very closely on some of the last projects he worked on during his life. And this is after the first book, right? We're just in editing of the first book. He said to me, of all the humorous science fiction writers that I've come across, you, to my mind, are the one who most captures that legacy, most captures the Douglas Adams legacy. And I was like, okay, so I'm a lot less strident about not being Douglas Adams since then. It was, as you might expect for a first-time novelist, it was just a very nice sort of way of getting into this profession. So, enough about me. I'm tearing up here. I'll read you a bit from the novel, which I'm not sure I mentioned the name. Multiverse is a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. I'm going to read you from Chapter 3. Chapter 3 takes place on the USS Starblack. It's a starship that allows me to make fun of certain tropes that I think most of you will recognize. Ever since I wrote this, I've been dying to read it at a science fiction convention, so I know I'm going to have a good time. I hope you guys do too. The door whooshed, clanked, wheezed, and hoo-wah'd almost open. An able spaceman, Elliot Cavort, strode onto the bridge. Back so straight, you would be forgiven for thinking it was made of tungsten carbide. Eyes focused so forward you might think they were seeing heaven. He strode up to Captain Pompus's chair without looking down to see where he was going. He had made the trip so often that he could now do it by body memory. Standing to the captain's left, he used his right hand to offer a futuristic-looking handheld device with a tacky 19th century case to the captain. "Sir, I need your signature on this document, sir," able spaceman Cavort crisply said. If the statement had been bacon, it would have been delicious. Able spaceman Cavort stood at attention for several seconds. When it became apparent that the captain was not going to snatch the device out of his hand, sign it without looking at it, and hand it back to him before turning his attention to more important matters, like the imminent destruction of the ship, which happens, generally speaking, once every 3 weeks. The average-looking pastel pusher, junior crew members who all wore variations on the standard ship uniform in any color they wanted, as long as it was red, with black hair and one leg slightly longer than the other, which made his strides a matter of precise mathematical calculation as much as anything, cleared his throat and said, "Captain, if I could just get your signature on this document." Several more seconds passed. Able spaceman Cavort realized that this was the longest he had ever spent on the bridge. The thought filled him with satisfaction mixed with dread. The bridge was not his place. He was much more comfortable in his office on B deck, writing requisition requests to Star Armada headquarters for additional antimatter plasma for the ship's Kessler drive, one of which was the very document he was waiting for the captain to sign. A bead of sweat appeared on his forehead. He cleared his throat again, louder, hoping this would have greater effect. It did not. Able spaceman Cavort did his best to stare at the wall screen at the front of the bridge, on which somebody had been playing a game of Space Invaders, but the person had lost, and superimposed on the battlefield was a box that asked if the player wanted to play again or log out of the game. The beads of sweat on his forehead were multiplying faster than a computer with an iterative math problem to solve, and before he even knew what was happening, out of the corner of his eye, he looked at Vice Captain Tresselon's workstation. Was that? The Vice Captain was slumped over his workstation, unconscious. Panic is a terrible thing. No longer concerned about bridge protocol, able spaceman Cavort looked wildly around him. The entire bridge crew were slumped over, unconscious, even Captain Pompous. "Captain," he urgently whispered, "Captain, wake up!" He raised the captain's arm, then dropped it to the arm of the big, comfy chair with the impressive control panel built into the fine Corinthian leather armrest that the captain never actually seemed to use for anything more complicated than inter-ship communications. Nothing. Able spaceman Cavort Able spaceman Cavort turned to face Captain Pompous, took him by the shoulders, and shook him. "Captain, really, need you to wake up now!" There was still no response. Able spaceman Cavort gulped and thought, "I'm going to be blamed for this." Able spaceman Cavort tapped on the comm button on the left sleeve of his uniform. "Dr. Excitable," he commanded it. A few seconds later, the mechanical comm voice pleasantly told him Dr. Excitable is not responding to his comm. But I need Dr. Excitable on the bridge, now!" Dr. Excitable is not responding to his comm. "Have you tried?" "I have tried everything that comm technology can do, and all I can tell you is that Dr. Excitable is not responding to his comm." "Ah!" Able spaceman, "Ah!" in frustration. The comm had been cheerful enough, but he sensed an undertone of regret at the limited role the device had to play in the life of the ship. Not that that was important now. Allison Blebelman, he tried. Allison was his shipwife. She would know what to do. She was also a leading spaceman, outranking him, so if blame was to be apportioned, she would get one rank more of it. Oh, and she was part of the ship's medical team. That might come in handy, too. Hey, Elliot, leading spaceman Allison Blebelman responded. What can I do for you? Need you on the bridge, right away. I've never been on the bridge, leading spaceman Allison Blebelman responded. Am I even allowed? Get up here now! Able spaceman cavorted. Well, I didn't hiss, but he did. While he waited for his shipwife to make her way to the bridge, able spaceman Cavort poked, prodded, and otherwise tested the bodies of various bridge crew members. He thought he heard a sigh from helmswoman Ketchaparian, but it turned out to be the air duct next to her workstation. He did find Dr. Excitable, whose body was slumped on the other side of Captain Pompus's big comfy chair with the impressive control panel built into the fine Corinthian leather armrest. Okay, what's so? Leading spaceman Allison Blebelman's voice trailed off as she surveyed all of the slumped over people. Close the door, able spaceman Cavort demanded. Realizing that she was still standing within the door's sensor range, leading spaceman Allison Blebelman stepped into the room. The door shushed shut behind her. She went up to Captain Pompus's chair and waved a diagnostic, analytic, medical interpretive device over his body. What does it say? What does it say? What does it say? Leading spaceman Allison Blebelman looked at the screen on the damage and frowned. All of his vital signs are normal except his brainwaves. There aren't any. There aren't any brainwaves, able spaceman Cavort screeched. Oh, for science's sake, Elliot. Leading spaceman Allison Blebelman wanted to slap him. Because he was really annoying the skivvies off of her. If it stopped his panic, that would just be a bonus. What is your problem? You know what my problem is. We're pastel pushers. If we're not the first ones to die in away teams on planets, we get blamed for whatever goes wrong on missions. You're exaggerating. I am not exaggerating. Remember what happened to Plestov the Unanticipated? Captain Pompus was the one who crashed the shuttle. Hell, Plestov wasn't even on the damn thing. But whose pay was docked for the replacement cost? Plestov had other issue. My point stands. Leading spaceman Allison Blebelman sighed. She damned each member of the bridge crew, but got exactly the same response. It's like their brains have been sucked out of their bodies, she thought. I was under the impression that this was a classier vessel than that. I really thought we avoided these B-movie plots. She touched the comm button on the sleeve of her uniform. Dr. Excitable is not responding to his comm, the mechanical voice told her, before she asked it to even make the connection. How did you know that I was going to ask that? I'm more than just a pretty voice, you know. Pointing to the body on the floor, able spaceman Cavort wiped the sweat off his forehead. Why did this have to happen? Why can't you wake up? Why can't you just get on your feet? And Captain Pompus's body jerked up and unsteadily got to his feet. Somebody screamed. It was able spaceman Cavort, although later, when the official investigation of the events was being conducted, he would vociferously deny it. I liked you better when you sat in your big comfy chair with the impressive control panel built into the fine Corinthian leather armrest. He shrieked. Star, star, star. 20 minutes later, a sound that combined the best part of grinding gears with the worst part of a heavenly choir rang, pealed, chimed. Well, it did whatever a sound like that could be said to do for 2 seconds. Then a craggy face appeared on the screen at the front of the bridge. A very craggy face, like the model for the eastern face of Everest Craggy. James, a clip-on vessel has been sighted within Admiral Adirondack Tarkovsky in full battle sweats, started to say. Then his face turned a shade of purple that was legally reserved for the croquet mallets of the royal family of Monaco. You may recall Grace Kelly wielding one in Dial M for Mediterranean Takeout. And hissed, "What the hell are you doing?" Sitting in the captain's big comfy chair with the impressive control panel built into the fine Corinthian leather armrest, able spaceman Cavort was directing Captain Pompus and Vice Captain Tressaloon in a passionate kiss. "No," he said, waving a blasé hand in the air. I'm just not feeling the heat. Vice Captain Tressaloon, it looks like you're trying to eat the captain's face. If you could just... Leading spaceman Allison Blebelman was leading the rest of the bridge crew in a cha-cha down the back of the room. The moment Admiral I meant Admiral Tarkovsky, but I've been spending a lot of my spare time with members of his impersonal staff who all call him you know, when he's not in the room, started talking, they turned their heads to look at the screen. The look on their faces suggesting 7-year-olds who've just been discovered playing doctor by an adult. Each person following leading spaceman Alison Blebelman danced into the person ahead of them. Finding their forward motion impeded, they cha-cha'd in place. Sir, able spaceman Cavort sputtered, jumping out of the captain's chair as though he had just sat on a cat. I came to the bridge with a form for the captain to sign. He raised his hand to show the form to the admiral, but his hand was stubbornly empty. He briefly glanced at the communication officer's station, where, for reasons that seemed unfathomable to him at the present circumstances, he had left it. But when I arrived, I found the bridge crew unresponsive. Unresponsive? Admiral Tarkovsky roared. Yes, sir. They're doing the frickin' conga! Actually, sir, leading spaceman Alison Blebelman, the braver of the two crew members, corrected him. With all due respect, they're doing the cha-cha. I don't care if they're doing the frickin' dance of the 7 veils, complete with a choir of fallen angels and the head of John the frickin' Baptist! Admiral Tarkovsky screamed. Taking the hint, leading spaceman Alison Blebelman waggled a hand towards the chorus line and around butt level and urgently whispered, stop dancing right now. The dancer stopped. And what do you call what Captain Pompous and his vice are doing? Admiral Tarkovsky continued in his very loud voice mode. Able spaceman Cavort looked at the embrace, then back at the admiral, and suggested, fan fiction? Oh, is that what they call it these days? Because when I was a ship's captain, behavior like that would get you court-martialed. If you were lucky. And if you weren't lucky, leading spaceman Alison Blebelman asked. Pictures of the incident would be transmitted on communication networks throughout the galaxy. Then try to get anybody to take you seriously when you needed to have defensive shields up or photon lasers fired on enemy vessels. Able spaceman Cavort leaned towards the captain and his vice captain and whispered, okay, cool it, guys. Take a couple of steps back from each other. As they did as they were told, Admiral Tarkovsky exploded, what the devil's unwashed sweat socks is going on out there? The bridge crew seems to be open to suggestion, able spaceman Cavort informed him. Admiral Tarkovsky fully opened his mouth in anticipation of a broad verbal assault, then slowly closed it and took a breath. Okay, a craggy breath. If Darkseid was the after picture, the Admiral would be the before picture. Before the others could gain at least there's one Marvel fan here. Before the others could gain their ease, he loudly continued, don't you know what to do in a situation like this? Able spaceman Cavort and leading spaceman Alison Blebelman looked at each other, hoping that the other knew the right answer. Oh, don't look at each other hoping that the other one knows the right answer. Admiral Tarkovsky shouted, bringing their attention back to his image on the screen. This isn't a final exam at the Space Academy. Regulation 452, Archie Instagram-557. Ring any bells? Advanced emergency procedures was full when I chose my 4th-year courses, able spaceman Cavort quietly explained. I chose to take intermediate 20th century cultural references instead. I was sick when we studied the 452 series of emergency regulations, leading spaceman Alison Blebelman said, her grin much chawed. And, well, honestly, I didn't feel the need to catch up because it wasn't on the exam. Admiral Tarkovsky looked like he was about to spit up a humidor full of cigars, and he had quit several years earlier owing to an unfortunate incident at a universe discovery potluck where somebody had told a slightly off-color joke, and in response he impaled one of the Grigalex hydroplane ambassador's husbands and with a half-smoked stogie. Sorry, I'm really tired. But almost done. Oh, for science's sake, he exploded. Check the excited tachyon indicator. You know, on the control panel of the science officer's station. What got them excited? Able spaceman Cavort smirked. He just couldn't help himself. Were they watching tachyon porn? Good science, Admiral Tarkovsky muttered. It really is like you're still at the Space Academy. Leading spaceman Alison Blebelman, who had made her way to the science officer's station, reported, Admiral, sir, the ETI appears to be flashing. What color? Leading spaceman Alison Blebelman looked at able spaceman Cavort, who shrugged most unhelpfully. Turning back to the screen, she said, Purple, sir. This took some of the fight out of the Admiral. Purple, huh? Not anywhere near as distinguished a shade of purple as your face, leading spaceman Elson Blevelman hastily added. More of a pale purple. Some people might even think of it as a mauve. Purple, eh? Well, shit. Sir? Admiral? This means I'm going to have to talk to Xaviera Fine Sailing, the Admiral said to himself, notwithstanding that they could hear him. Privileged rank, right? Then, just as the silence was shading into the uncomfortable zone, he snapped to attention and barked. Okay, in a few minutes somebody's going to appear on the bridge to sort this mess out. If you haven't stopped fooling around and gotten the bridge crew back to their stations, it will go down on your permanent records. Before either of the pastel pushers could respond, the screen went blank. After a couple of seconds of silence, able spaceman Kavort asked, so, time for one more smooch? There you go. Now, what I will tell you is, one of the motivating plot points in the first half of the book is that somebody is taking the consciousness of people and switching the consciousness of people with people in other universes. Does anybody want to guess, because I think there's enough information there that you probably can, what the crew's, the bridge crew's consciousnesses, where their consciousnesses have been switched into? Anybody?
The love boats.
Sorry? The love boat.
You know, cha-cha.
Okay, give you one hint. A lot of us have played, that just gave it away. Okay, never mind, I won't give you one hint. The bridge crew of the spaceship, their consciousnesses have been entered into the bridge crew of the spaceship, but in a computer game. And that's why they're suggestible, because, of course, characters in computer games are told what to do.
Is it the flashing of the screen saying, did you want to play again? Is that the clue that we...
Well, the clue is more that the two characters who are not part of the bridge crew tell the bridge crew what to do, and they respond immediately, right? Like you would, like a non-player, like a player character in a computer game. No. You don't have to know that. It becomes very obvious because later in the novel, the people who are investigating this appear in a young woman's room, and they're just in time to keep her from turning the game off. Because if you think about it, it will return to its, unless she saves it, I guess, it will return to its natural state, its original state, first state, and all of the bridge crew whose consciousness are now in these bodies they don't control, their consciousness will get erased. Anyway, more than you need to know. Thank you for coming. Does anybody want to buy a book?